The last few weeks have been jam-packed with amazing innovations at Eurobike, followed by dreamy pro bikes at the Tour de France. We've seen an e-bike motor and gearbox, along with a Red Bull prototype race bike.
There's also a new SRAM GX Eagle transmission to look at. But all of this tech has got us thinking, are bikes too complicated? Sure, innovations can make bikes better, but that tech drives up prices for all of us. So what does it mean for you and the pair of us too? Let's take a closer look, shall we?
Aero tube shapes, electronic suspension, disc brakes, tubeless tyres, integrated everything. Bikes have made some pretty big strides on the tech front in the last decade or so.
Yeah, they're certainly a lot different than they were just a few years ago. I mean, personally, I love most of that technology, but Liam, are you a little more on the fence?
You know what, mate? Actually, yeah, I'm kind of on the fence because I love my disc brakes and I love my tubeless tyres, especially the wider ones on the road bike. There are some things that I don't like the integrated front ends. But in the mountain bike world, things are going a bit crazy, aren't they?
They're going very crazy at the minute. So Pinion have got their new eDrive motor gearbox unit, which combines their gearbox technology with an e-bike motor into a nice compact unit, does away with the derailleur, which is a nice system to have. They've also got RockShox with their flight attendant system, which has been out in the wild for a little bit. It's also winning XC races now as well. And SRAM, as we'll get onto later, have launched a new GX Eagle transmission wireless group set. So yeah, mountain biking is definitely going a bit tech crazy at the minute. I'm not so sure that it's a good thing. In some cases it makes sense, like the Pinion, I think that makes total sense on an electric bike. The flight attendant, I'm a little bit more on the fence of. The GX transmission is incredibly good. It's not cheap, as we'll get onto later, but it is very, very good. So yeah, I'm very much like you, mate. I'm a bit on the fence. Most of it I do like, you know, the better brakes, the wider tyres, modern geometry, fully behind all that. But taking it to the next step, like the electronics and the integration, yeah, I'm not so sold on that one.
You know, for me, the electronics are actually a funny thing because we're seeing over on the roadside the introduction of electronic shifting at lower and lower price points. And realistically, if you asked me when I was 16, what I wanted my gears to shift better. And these days, at lower and lower price points, they are.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely brilliant. But I would love to see the mechanical group set, you know, the cheap mechanical group set that works just perfectly. I'd love them to get a bit of attention this year.
You're not referring to your recent Di2 issue, are you?
The one where my front derailleur just stopped working for no apparent reason. No, can't think of it. And weirdly, mate, I'd actually like some more new tech. The UCI, for me, needs to drop the minimum weight limit to see the rebirth of proper lightweight race bikes. That way, we might get a bit more choice rather than most brands simply offering a do-it-all road race bike. In fact, it might even make aero bikes faster because they wouldn't then have to be light enough for the mountains. Who knows, we might even get a return of rim brakes.
Ooh, make the weight weenies happy. Yeah, really though, for me, it's just a case of like bikes are getting really expensive at certain levels at the market. So it would be nice to see them drop down a little bit. Obviously you can still get really, really good budget bikes.
You were riding one the other week, weren't you?
Yes, if you want to see just how far you can quite literally push a budget bike, be sure to check out our Big Mountain on a Budget video where my good self and our videographer Robin ground out the miles up and most of the way down, in my own case at least, Ben Lomond in Scotland. It really is a cracker. Well, a nose breaker as far as I was concerned.
There has been a plethora of new tech at the Tour de France. We've covered loads of it on the channel already, so we're going to focus on the bits that you might have missed and add some details to those mystery bikes that we spotted ahead of the race.
Of course, one of those bikes that we've seen is the Factor 02 van, which was teased but has now been officially released. So Liam, tell the good people what we know about it.
Well, You can dive all the way into the tech details via our story on the website at BikeRadar.com. We'll leave a link in the description, but here are the headline facts. We have a 730 gram, including the seat post, frame set weight.
That's really light.
That's in a 54 as well. We've got wide seat tubes, an external seat post design, which reminds me a lot of the giant TCR in a way. Factor is one of those brands that actually tells you what carbon fibers are in the carbon fiber frame, which is quite interesting, I think. So we have pitch fiber, pan fiber, T1000, M60J, and Techstream, or Extreme. Extreme. So in terms of builds, a Dura Ace build comes in at about 6.2 kilos for a size 54, which again, very, very light.
UCI illegal light.
UCI illegal light until the UCI ditches that lower frame.
Listen to Liam Cahill.
Come on. All right, so we've got an increased seat tube angle, and then that's about it. We've got 4 fork offsets for different sizes. There's a taller stack as well, but really that's all the geometry that I want to talk about.
But it's not just the O2 VAM that's new from Factor as well. There's a new wheel set, I believe, as well. On the bike.
Which we also saw at the start of the Tour de France. This is the Black Ink 2833 wheel set, which replaces the 30. This has a claimed weight of 1,146 grams, which is crazy light. The bike and the wheels would have taken its first win at the Tour de France under Michael Woods, but he used the Ostro Aero bike for a very, very hilly finish. Turns out optimizing the 170 kilometers of flat to rolling terrain before the hill is a bit more important than optimizing for like 4 kilometers of steep climb. If you didn't see this one, then it has been created with Red Bull, and we think that it's going to be the new Time Machine Road. There are no details as such on this, but there are a few things that we can spot. Chiefly, the down tube is very narrow at the top where it meets the head tube, and it widens massively around the bottle cages. So are we thinking this is going to shelter them from the wind, maybe?
I mean, if anybody knows anything about aerodynamics, it's Red Bull and Adrian Newey, because they're dominating Formula One this year. It's a big aero-dominated formula with the ground effect cars. Sorry to get car nerdy people, but I can't help it. So yeah, Red Bull know a thing or two about aerodynamics. So interesting to see that it is a pretty wild-looking bike from BMC there.
Anyway, we've got a massive fork clearance up at the front, and then Ben O'Connor's bike, which we had hands-on with at the Tour de France, he stands at 1.88 meters, which is quite tall for a rider. He weighs 67 kilos apparently as well, which
that's a lot less
makes
than me.
him tiny. But his bike was 7.34 kilos, and we'd suspect that he's running maybe a 58, but that is quite light for an aero road bike like this.
Bike, that was very impressive. Yeah. Very, very impressive.
There was also, Tom, some tech that we didn't manage to cover in our videos. Tadej Pogačar's Colnago V4 RS had a change of cockpit for the 2023 Tour de France. Envy came on board as the UAE Team Emirates wheel and handlebar partner in January, and yeah, they've brought out a new bar for him. This is a replacement for the 2-piece SES Aero handlebar that he used to use. What can we say about this? The new handlebar has a knife-like leading edge and deep flattened tops, all of course to improve its aerodynamic performance. Now, sticking with Pogačar, we did see very, very briefly, because the UAE riders were in certain jerseys very, very quickly in the race, but on the first stage we saw that Pogačar and Yates were wearing jerseys that had integrated aero kind of fairings on the sleeves. Now this replaces the Rule 28 kind of crop tops that they were wearing.
Fashion abomination.
But both the riders then went into the yellow and white jersey respectively, and so they brought back their crop tops. So that is how important aerodynamics are.
They're literally willing to wear a crop top in the search of speed
Absolutely.
and aero. No shame, those guys, at all. But
right.
When you're as fast as them, I mean, come on, you'll wear whatever you want.
Absolutely. Back to mountain biking now, mate. Familiar ground for you.
Yeah,
and
familiar ground.
News that SRAM has released what feels like its 1 millionth drivetrain to me of this year in the form of GX Eagle transmission, joining the XXSL, XX and XO siblings to join the revised Force and ETAP Access drivetrains, with rumours of a new SRAM Red group set ripe as well, which we spotted back in December last year. My lord.
They have been very, very, very busy, boys and girls, so busy. But we have dedicated videos of the first iteration and those new road group sets, so be sure to check those out. But of course, GX is really hogging the limelight at the minute.
Now, Tom, you've spent a bit of time on it during filming and writing the news story. What do you think, and what are the key points that the viewers need to know about?
Yeah, so first impressions are extremely positive. Like, honestly, if you could ride blindfolded, which we don't recommend, by the way, then I'd find it pretty much indistinguishable from the higher end group sets like XX and XO that I've had a similar amount of time on. So it's pretty impressive given that it is substantially cheaper.
Even though it is so much cheaper, but it's not exactly cheap, is it?
Yeah, this isn't cheap, and I fully expect a group set over £1,000 or $1,000 to perform pretty darn well. I mean, this is effectively Shimano SLX level gear, but it costs as much as XTR mechanical, so it really should perform well given the costs involved.
Come on then, what makes it tick? How has SRAM actually made it cheaper?
So as with a lot of other brands, they've used cheaper, heavier materials to keep the price down. So there's more steel, less aluminium, and the cassette is pinned rather than machined from one piece, which helps to keep the cost down. But as far as the rest of the tech goes, it's pretty much the same really, which is quite impressive. You get the same direct mount derailleur design, the same X-Sync shift lanes, and the two work together to optimize the shifting. So get this, the derailleur knows where the chain is on the cassette, and it won't actually move it into the next selected gear until it knows there's a shift lane there for it to shift smoothly.
That's pretty cool that the derailleur is that clever and ties in nicely with the topic of the episode. There's a lot going on there compared to a good old cable drivetrain.
Yeah, it is super, super cool, and the performance is outstanding, but as you say, does add a lot of complexity. If you want to know more about GX transmission, then make like a hot potato over to the link in the description to check out the full video. But of course, it also raises the question, as Liam said before, are bikes getting too complex? It's wireless, you need a specific frame fitment for it to work, so it won't work on my transition, for example. It's not cross-compatible with anything else, and it's not cheap. I mean, I'd argue it does improve performance, and removing cables and the hanger is technically simplifying things, but there's a lot to potentially go wrong as well. So, you know, pros and cons either way, really.
Be sure to let us know what you think about all of the topics that we've covered in today's video. We really do love to read your thoughts down in the comments below.
And if you want even more Tour de France tech, because that does seem to be the hot topic at the minute, there's more of it right in front of Liam's face. Check it out.
Oi.